I am the Education and Training Manager here at the Office of Energy and Sustainability. And we have some wonderful speakers for you all to hear today. And just a quick reminder, two things. One is that we're going to be recording today's session so people can reflect on it in the future. With that in mind, please keep yourselves muted. And if you have questions, save them for the end. And these folks will answer those questions that you have about careers and anything that comes to mind at the end of the session. And so I'm going to kick it over to my protege, Jess, and she's going to introduce herself.
Thanks, Kaylin. Hi, everyone. My name is Jess Brossman, and I am an engineer at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. I'm also one of the organizers for SD Pathways, which is the Career Talk program. And I'm really excited to introduce our speaker today, Kate.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kate. I'll go ahead and share my screen because my introduction is part of my because my introduction is part of my presentation. All right, so yeah, as Jess and Kaylin mentioned, we'll be talking about sustainable careers today in the architecture, engineering, and construction world. So here are the few things I want to talk about today. So who I am and why I'm interested in sustainable buildings, and why you might be interested in sustainable buildings, what kind of roles might exist for you in a potential career path, and then also talk about what is Solar Decathlon. So a little bit about myself first. I work for a group called Cyclone Energy Group. You may have heard of the idea of green building certifications. Those are what we use to verify that buildings are meeting sustainable goals that we've set. And so my company works towards meeting those goals in a variety of ways through energy simulation and commissioning. So right here, this is an image of a helicopter delivering a new mechanical rooftop unit to a building in downtown Chicago. And then we'll also perform drone scans to figure out how buildings are performing and if they're up to the standards that we're expecting them to. And I'm based out of Austin, Texas, and my company's based out of Chicago. Here's a little bit more about me. I studied architecture and architectural engineering at the University of Texas at Austin. And then I started working at a company called Positive Energy as a sustainable design engineer. This is me presenting at my first conference. I'm also working towards pursuing my license in professional engineering. And so I passed my first engineering exam in 2021, and now I work at Cyclone. All right, so this is an open-ended question, so I'm curious, what you guys are thinking. So what makes buildings sustainable? There are a lot of ways that you might be familiar with and some that you might not be familiar with. One that comes to my mind immediately is a building's ability to enable us to move away from gas and towards electricity, and that is in the form of electric vehicles in this case. Another way we can think about buildings being sustainable is through using electric cooktops like induction as opposed to gas. And those are generally better for our health and better for the environment. Buildings can also be airtight, and being airtight means that they don't, if you can picture a big gust of wind, buildings are not enabling that gust of wind to enter the home and either bring a lot of heat or a lot of cold air into your house. And so that's a way that buildings can be more sustainable, is to use less energy. And then buildings can also generate energy themselves. So this is a McDonald's with a lot of solar panels on top of it that's in Chicago. What kind of impacts do buildings have? So the room that you're in, it's impacting you in some kind of way. And I'm curious, think in your head about kind of what that is. And I'll talk a little bit about what I think it is for me. So my room right now is bringing me a lot of light. I've got this nice window behind me. I'm also being heated in the room right now. I'm in Austin, Texas, and it's about 45 degrees outside. So the heating system is bringing me heated air and making me more comfortable. It's also providing me shelter. It's pretty sunny outside, so I might be squinting, if I was sitting outside, but I'm pretty comfortable and able to look at these screens. But buildings also impact us in a number of ways that I haven't just talked about. So they can impact our health. For example, I mentioned that a lot of gas usage in the home can lead to asthma. And buildings can also impact us in a positive way. It's been shown that if we've got natural light in hospitals, that patients heal faster. And buildings can also use a lot of energy and take up a lot of natural resources. And so buildings play a large role in climate change. Buildings can also impact the way that you interact with the space around you, whether they enable you to drive your electric vehicle or take nearby transit options. And buildings can also cost a lot of money to operate. There are a lot of things that impact buildings. So thinking about it from the other perspective, what about the environment might impact a building? During COVID-19, we talked a lot about air pollutants and contaminants. So buildings can act to filter those COVID particles and prevent you from getting sick or getting others sick. Buildings can also keep out water. So when it rains or if there's snow, your buildings are preventing all of those environmental factors from impacting your being at that moment. Buildings can also bring in a lot of daylight, and they can also enable us to be warmed by the sun. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. For example, in the Texas summer, I would rather have shade on my buildings or kind of a longer, bigger roof so that I'm not being hit by the sun as much. So because of all these environmental factors that affect buildings, there are a number of ways that buildings can sort of fight back or work with the environment to be more sustainable. So one of those that we've talked about already is generating energy with solar panels. And then we can also have really well insulated buildings. That's what this kind of pink barrier represents, that this building is really well insulated. And all of that enables the building to use less energy. Okay, here's another question for you to ponder in your head. We can think about energy in two different ways: energy efficiency and energy conservation. And here's the question for you to answer, amongst yourselves is, we've got this large truck, pretty sizable compared to this kid. And then we've also got this smaller Prius. Which car do you think uses less gas? So yeah, it's the Prius. So this car is more energy efficient than this car, and we can think about buildings in that same way. Another way that we can think about buildings using less energy is via conservation. So when it's nighttime, we have the option to leave all the lights of your house on or turn them all off. Which home do you think uses less energy? So it's the one with all of the lights off. So we can also use less energy by choosing to turn the lights off instead of leaving them on at night, for example. So buildings that use less energy are considered high-performing buildings. But high-performing buildings can mean a lot of other things as well. It means that the buildings are positively impacting us and our environment. So buildings have the capability to help educate us about sustainable food growth and bring us a closer connection to our environment. They can enable us to live healthy and happy lives. And they can also influence the way that we learn. So similar to how we talked about earlier, that hospitals with natural light are more friendly places to heal. Classrooms with a lot of natural light are better places for students to learn as well. And there are a lot of different potential roles that contribute to creating high performance buildings. And I play one of those roles, and here are a number of different ones that we'll talk about on these next few slides. So for each of these slides, I've got the name of the role that we're describing and the anticipated salary of that person, and then a few different examples of the kind of work that they do, and then also listed out education requirements. So architects are generally responsible for bringing the vision of a building to life. They're responsible for sort of selling the story of what the building is going to be about, and also putting together all the drawings that other contractors will reference in order to make the building. Builders are then responsible for taking those drawings and making them a reality, essentially. Builders typically need an associate or bachelor's degree, but they do not have to have degrees. There are two different types of engineers that I want to talk about here. There's a consulting engineer and a design engineer. I'm what's called a consulting engineer, so that means that I help architects make their buildings more sustainable by performing analyses to help them figure out how the environmental factors are affecting their building. But there are also design engineers who will design mechanical systems, plumbing systems, electrical systems, and structural systems. Typically, engineers have 4-year bachelor's degrees, and then some engineers also require graduate degrees, and engineers also get licensed. Another category here of potential career options is an electrician. So an electrician will put together the electrical wiring of a building, and they'll also be responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of that electrical infrastructure. Electricians typically have some training after high school, and most also get licenses. HVAC technicians are similar to electricians, but they perform all of the maintenance and upkeep, and then also the installation of the HVAC systems. And when I say HVAC, I mean heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So all of the mechanical systems in the building is what the HVAC technician is responsible for. These folks typically have some training after high school and also get licensed. Next up, and we'll hear more about this in a minute, are the solar installers. So solar installers are typically licensed electricians with some additional training. And what they do, generally speaking, is they will figure out how much solar could be on top of a building, or wherever it's going on the site. And then they will install that solar. And because they're installing it, that's why they typically are electricians with additional training. Next up, we've got the building engineers. So these are the folks who are responsible for maintaining a building's operation after it has been constructed. So there's generally a team of folks who will sort of walk around the building on a day-to-day basis to make sure that things are operating as they're anticipated to. And typically building engineers have associate's degrees. Okay, so that's it with the careers. Next, I want to talk a little bit about what Solar Decathlon is. So I participated in Solar Decathlon, and Solar Decathlon is a design challenge that you can focus on residential or commercial designs. And what you'll do within that challenge is compete in any of these 10 contests to see if to see how kind of sustainable you can make your project. I'll show you a few pictures that'll help explain that a little bit better. So these are a bunch of pictures of students who have participated in Solar Decathlon in the past. And so what you'll do is when you are in college, you'll have the opportunity to join a group of people and create some kind of sustainable building, whether it be commercial or residential, as we talked about on the previous page. You might work with a model. You might make some kind of model to show off. And then eventually there's a conference where you'll get together and go to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, there we go, in Colorado, and present your work and meet a bunch of other people who, will probably be your colleagues for the rest of your life if you keep doing sustainable stuff. Here's a bit about my experience at Solar Decathlon. So my favorite part about Solar D was that it was very interdisciplinary. I met a few grad students, so I was an undergraduate student, but I think it's just, this is me, and then my other friend right here is the only 2 undergraduate students. So it was a great way to meet people. And then we also were a team of engineers. I served as the project manager. These 2 were the architects, and then I think they were maybe the business folks. So it was just very much a good way to get to know all those different people and see what working collaboratively looks like, which is kind of what you do in your professional world. All right, so how did I get started? I did eventually do Solar Decathlon, but what happened before that? So as I said before, I studied architecture and engineering at UT, but I sort of felt like there was maybe a gap in understanding and in collaboration between those 2 professions. And so that's kind of what made me interested in sustainability. And then I saw this is the Condetta building in Georgia, which uses more energy than it generates more energy than it uses. So that I found that really inspiring, and that prompted me to look into different sustainable analysis opportunities. And I found some softwares that I was interested in. And then I participated in Solar Decathlon. And then I connected with a professor who helped me get my first job. And then ultimately I did an undergraduate research project where I looked into evaluating the environmental impact of construction materials in buildings. So I'm about 3 years into my career so far, but these are kind of the items that I've learned as far as, getting started in your career. So something I find really interesting is that when you're in school, you're making good grades, you're doing your best, and you're gonna go on to the next class, and you're gonna graduate and then go on to the next schooling opportunity, basically. But when you're in the workforce, those steps aren't really going to happen naturally for you. And so that was kind of a big light bulb moment for me when I realized that it was essentially all up to me to advocate for myself and to get that next promotion or switch jobs. Additionally, I've gotten pretty far in my career by just by being comfortable not knowing the answers to questions, and just being comfortable asking those questions to other people who know more than you. Lastly, it's important to just ask those dumb questions. Dumb is a misnomer here because certainly there aren't any dumb questions. They're all worth your time to ask. You're always going to learn something, and someone else has that question as well. And then I think it's important to just nurture your creativity, which just means be authentic and recognize that what you have is something that not everybody else has to give. All right, that's all I got. So I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Hey. Oh, thank you so much, Kate. That was incredible. I loved hearing about your journey and your experience with Solar Decathlon. That's kind of connecting all of our pieces here. And so Kate was kind of talking about energy jobs on the kind of grand scale and the macro scale of what is possible for you and what kind of education you would need. And now we're going to kind of zoom in a little bit on New York City. So we have two of the members of our solar team here from the Office of Energy and Sustainability. We have Rory Eblin and Josh Cano Jimenez, and they're going to kind of walk you through their experience with working with solar in New York City here through our office. So I'm going to kick it over to those guys.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Rory Eblin. I'm the solar program manager for New York City's Office of Energy and Sustainability. I'm here with Josh Cano Jimenez. Josh, you want to introduce yourself?
Definitely. Thank you, buddy. My name is Josh Cano Jimenez. I am one of the solar project managers within the DOE, NYC DOE solar team. And it's a pleasure to be here with you guys this morning. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the screen. Whoever did that, I appreciate it. Yeah, so careers in solar. It's a fun industry to work in. I'll just real quick before we start, I'll give you some background on myself. I've been in the solar industry for about 13 years. I started out as an installer up on the roof. Pretty dangerous job, but it's very fun, very rewarding. And I, quickly was taking opportunities that were available to me, self-advocating for myself and working myself up the chain and into project management, operations, and it's been a fun ride so far. So we're excited to be here, and we'll talk about what we do and then answer any questions that you may have. So right now, Josh and I are managing a pretty robust construction portfolio that is actively installing solar on rooftops. We're doing ground mount systems. We're doing backup battery systems as well. So it's a pretty robust, pretty dynamic portfolio. To date, we have a total of 87 completed projects on New York City schools. And that makes up about 80% of the total installed solar on New York City owned buildings. So we're a part of museums, fire departments, hospitals, We're the biggest part of the pie, so it's a pretty rewarding, and there's a lot of purpose around it, being that we're installing solar on education facilities and providing clean renewable energy to these schools. Also, some of these metrics, we have 200 plus solar projects underway, so we have projects that we're working with engineering and design teams, solar vendors in designing and getting the proper construction documents ready to move forward with construction. We have 5+ battery storage solar projects in design. So it's a new market in New York City. Solar has been around for a while. It's been established. With the battery aspect, that's another component that just increases a building's resiliency to operate off the grid. So if you think about it, we're doing these projects where we're installing solar on the roof and there's a battery at the facility. So the solar generates electricity from the sun, and then that electricity is stored in the battery that can be used. And essentially the facility becomes a microgrid. So if the power goes out in that area, that facility can operate their main pieces of infrastructure, like their HVAC equipment, their refrigerators, lights, stuff like that. So in an emergency situation, that building can still function. And then last, we have about 200 plus solar schools being assessed for future projects. So again, it's a very robust program that we're managing, and I'm super grateful to be a part of it. If you want to go to the next slide. So what do we do? Yeah, that's the side right here. So what we do is we look at our whole portfolio of New York City schools. We have over 1,600 buildings in New York City, and not every building is a good candidate to receive solar. So we do a lot of due diligence, Josh and myself, in assessing and locating schools that would be awesome candidates for solar. So we do solar readiness assessments, and we look for large buildings with free and clear open roofs. We look for buildings that are in good structural condition. So we want to make sure that we can add additional weight to the rooftop. And we also look for roofs that have roofing membranes. That's the cap. That's like the membrane that encloses the roof. We look for those types of systems that are less than 10 years old. And we do that because in the event of a roof leak or anything wrong with the roof, we can file a claim under the roof warranty. And we look for those three parameters, and we've been pretty successful. And that's why we have pretty good numbers in terms of sites that we can pick from to allocate to new build contracts. Next slide, please. So why are we doing this? So the city wants to become carbon neutral, right? And in doing so, we need to retrofit our facilities with renewable energy or green infrastructure, right? So one of those ways is through rooftop solar. And there's a goal to install 100 megawatts of solar on city-owned buildings by 2025. And we are, like I said, we're about 80% of the total solar capacity right now on New York City buildings. We're about 19 megawatts total. So there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of individuals in the workforce that are contributing to this. So why is solar good? It saves money because you're able to produce your own electricity on site rather than relying on the grid. So you can reduce and save on your electrical bills. You reduce air pollution because those power plants that are needed to power a facility, coal operated, natural gas operated, their output, their emissions are contributing to the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So by installing solar, you reduce the amount of energy a facility needs to operate. So we're reducing air pollution. We increase infrastructure resiliency. So when we install solar, or if there's a big solar installation that happens in an area, again, that building or that facility now has a reduced pull from the local utility grid. And what that does is in events where say everybody gets home at 5 o'clock in August, and they turn their air conditioners on and they turn their TVs on and they start powering their homes. There's a huge strain on the grid. So if we're able to reduce the largest building in the neighborhood's pull from the grid, we can then alleviate the grid to be more resilient. And then we also, since we're working in the Department of Education, this whole construction portfolio, we're catalyzing educational opportunities from, and we will talk about that. And then I believe that's the next slide. So the other half of our program is the New York City Solar Schools Education Program. So we've seen an opportunity, being that we work within the New York City Department of Education, to make a connection to the classroom, make the rooftop to the classroom, because it's easy to forget that you have a solar installation on a flat roof building. You don't see it every day. So we catalyze the construction efforts that we're doing into these education opportunities, and we provide professional learning workshops for teachers. So interested teachers can sign up for training to learn everything from A to Z about solar, and they can obtain solar materials that they can use in the classroom to develop lesson plans for their kids and get everybody aware of solar. And with meetings like this, increase awareness of the job opportunities that are in the solar industry, because it's big. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and it is the future. So we do that. We allow access to real-time solar production. So when a solar system's installed, it is monitored virtually. All the data that is available shows the production that the solar system is producing. It'll show it in terms of how many cars are being taken off the road or how many trees are being planted. And using that data, teachers can devise lesson plans around it, and it's a good opportunity for education. And then another thing too is we offer these display monitors and banners to increase awareness in New York City schools. So up to about 2 years ago, we would install TVs in the school lobbies that would show the production data real time. So parents, teachers, students, anybody walking inside these schools can see that, hey, there's a solar installation on the school, and this is how much power it is producing. We're moving away from the TV model, and we're going to create a model that utilizes these banners, and you could see it in the bottom picture, where we're going to put a QR code on these banners that people can use their smartphones to scan, and it will show the real-time data of what's being produced on that rooftop. So more about the education program. So not only do we focus on the teachers, we also focus on the students. So in New York City, there is, I believe, 16 CTE high schools, career technical education high schools, where high school students go and they learn a trade like engineering, design, architecture. I know there's the aviation school in Queens. Kids learn about, airplane mechanics and aviation. So what we've done is we've added a solar education track to some of these programs. So interested students who want to learn more about solar can attend. They could learn about solar. They learn how to construct it. They learn how it works. They learn about all the opportunities in the industry. And if they are still interested and they want to learn more about it or obtain some real working experience, we have a paid solar CT internship. And that's where we place students with local solar companies that are actually installing solar on New York City schools. Again, because this is a very rapidly growing industry, there's a lot of opportunity available. So I would take advantage of what is popular, and it is. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And again, this is another way that we connect what's happening on the roof to the classroom. I think the last slide is and this is the whole flow chart of what I just presented on. It starts with the construction. We have the solar teacher professional learning. We have the solar CTE education track for high school students, and then we have the solar internship. So we create this whole holistic full circle approach in what we do. But yeah, that's what we do. And I have the solar background. Josh, if you want to speak on your background a bit.
Sure. Thank you, buddy. So unlike Rory, my background is in architecture. So I studied architecture just as Kate did. Um, and my background is predominantly in new building construction and interior renovations. That being said, that doesn't mean you can't jump into a solar role, even if you don't have prior solar experience. Solar isn't a very complicated field. So once you understand it, you basically understand it. And after you pick it up, you're just running with it. That's it. It's not like full building construction or gut renovations, in the sense that it's not as complicated as those other fields. Um, but it's an amazing field, and as Rory said, it's the future. It's the future. So I highly recommend, guys, if you can jump in, jump in.
Yeah. Yeah, so with the solar, right, there's so many different opportunities available. If you're into construction and using your hands, obviously being a solar installer, an electrician, that's your calling. If you're more into the business side of how companies work, there's a lot of opportunities in business development with solar. If you're a creative individual and you like taking pictures, or you like photos, or you go down a marketing pathway in college, there's tons of marketing opportunities in solar. So it isn't just exclusive to the construction aspect. There's a lot of opportunities in the solar world that, if you're interested, I would take advantage of. But yeah, that's the end of our presentation. That's what we do. And, we're excited to be here. And thank you.
Thank you guys so much for that intel. That's really wonderful. And it's, I think, really important to point out that they are coming from different pathways and they ended up in the same they work together closely every day. So we're going to open the floor now for questions for either Josh or Rory or Kate in the career field that you just heard about. So if you guys have any questions about what you just heard, we can start taking those questions now. You can type them into the chat. I think that's the easiest way for everybody to know what the questions are. I was looking for our school building data information, so I will share that in the chat in a little bit so you guys can see whether or not your school already has solar panels. And that's something that you can do on your energy day. I also will drop into the chat some questions that we have already kind of put together. So if you're feeling a little shy or you're not sure what to ask, you can kind of freestyle the questions that we provide. I have a question for our solar guys. What is the most difficult part of your job?
Do you want to go first, Josh?
That's why I paused. I'd say sometimes stakeholder engagement can be a bit difficult. Sometimes we deal with different on-site stakeholders that aren't, how can I say, they see the vision, but they don't understand it. So then it falls on Rory and I to explain the project, explain the process, and explain exactly what the system is doing. And typically from what we've encountered, is that after we have that targeted conversation with our on-site stakeholders, typically things soften up or get better. But I'd say, in my humble opinion, I'd say that's the most difficult aspect of our job.
Yeah, I'd agree. Just to add to that is, we're doing construction operations on school buildings with students inside them. So that's definitely challenging versus like a private company that contracts with a landowner or a homeowner, and they're expecting this type of work. That's the most challenging aspect, I'd say. Yep.
Awesome. I have some other questions here in the chat. What are some career paths in solar energy? So I know I mentioned some. Could you reiterate what you had mentioned? And that's from Mr. Foxman.
Yeah, definitely. So
Great
if you are interested in sustainability, renewable energy, obtaining a background in the various technologies out there, is always a plus, because solar companies are very broad in their requirements, I'd say, for what degrees they're looking for, because there are so many different aspects in terms of, you have engineers and you have designers that are speccing this stuff out on 2D models. You have individuals that are interested in sales. Maybe they're more of a people person and they want to be out there in the world face to face with clients, with landowners, trying to develop the business. That leads into business development. So if you're into business and you want to know more about business, there's opportunities in business development. There's marketing. There's tons of private companies out there that, in order for them to get out there, they need to market themselves. So, if you're into videography, photography, marketing, there's opportunities there. If you're a logical, mechanical, individual, project management is a good is prevalent in the solar industry, because they are projects, so managing them from A to Z is important. If you're if you like to work by yourself and not really a people person, there are opportunities like I'd say in site inspectors, site assessors, where you're going out to the site usually by yourself or with another individual, and you're measuring the facility that you're looking at or the land you're looking at. There's permitting opportunities in solar. When I say permitting, I mean the regulatory, aspects, because there's a lot of municipalities that require building permits. So there are permit teams that go out there and they file paperwork to get their permits done, or they do public hearings in front of local towns and villages and cities to introduce their projects and get their projects approved. There's so many opportunities in solar. Yeah, I would
Great.
say,
We have one from Miss McCarthy. Hey, Katie. What is a favorite part of your job? And I think that's one that all of you can answer in your sustainability track of your job.
I'd say the same thing, actually, Kaylin, that on-site interactions with our on-site stakeholders, because when the vision is there and our on-site stakeholders are excited about our upcoming projects, I'd say magical, honestly. Projects run super smoothly, and they run in a very efficient manner. So in my humble opinion, I'd say as well, engagement with on-site stakeholders.
Awesome. How about for you, Kate? What do you think? What's your favorite part of your day-to-day?
I think something I didn't expect about the engineering field is that you get to be really creative, because we are addressing climate change and there are a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, one that I've taken to heart is, education and trying to make visualizations that speak to people and can help educate people about what we're trying to do.
Cool. Awesome. We're having some great questions flowing into the chat here. Another question is, what is an architect's role in solar energy?
So they're responsible for designing the system that's going to be installed. Architects and professional engineers in New York State, they're required to obtain a architecture's license or a professional engineer's license, and they are responsible for placing their stamp on the drawings and assessing the building and making sure it's structurally sound, making sure that they adhere to all the local codes and requirements. And if you do have that stamp, you have a lot of opportunities to make a lot of money.
Awesome. Some other questions. In college, what major should be on the economic? What major should be on the economic business side of solar energy? Would you say?
I would say business administration. I think that's a good background to have to understand how a business works. And then maybe if you go for a graduate degree, or if you want to do it the other way around, any degrees in sustainability, you know, engineering. I'm trying to think of anything. I don't know if anybody else has anything, you know, architecture degree.
I think all the things you mentioned too about how
Yeah.
ways they can kind of interact with it. Right. It's a business. So any kind of business aspect, marketing, social media, all those types of things to get the energy going around it.
Yeah, I guess it really comes down to what your interest is. You know, if you're into the installation and the construction, I would, you know, I would go towards an electrical engineering degree. If you're into like the sales side and the development, I would go towards a business degree. You know, engineering also, you can then learn more about AutoCAD and learn how to design the systems on using the softwares that are out there to create drawings. Yeah.
Some one that we were expecting, how much does someone in a solar field make each year? It's all about the money.
Yeah, I guess it all comes down to what position you're holding, right? So, like I said, if you're a professional engineer, you hold the stamp, right? You're gonna be responsible for all the plans, all the construction plans that are developed through that company. So there's a lot of money to be made if you hold that stamp. You know, I would also say electricians too have an opportunity to make a lot of money. You know, there's local unions in New York City, specifically the electrical union. Even if you move outward towards Long Island and in upstate, you know, different towns and cities and villages require electricians to hold what's called a master's electrician's license. And, you know, I have a couple of individuals I've worked with in the past that are master electricians, and they hold various licenses throughout the different municipalities in New York, and they are probably some of the richest individuals I've met. Very humble too. They know what it's like to get shocked by a solar panel. But
So it
yeah,
doesn't come without a little danger.
I would say electricians. I know. Yeah, it's that. Well, you know, when you think about it, you're installing an electrical device on a roof. So you combine two of the more dangerous installation trades out there, which is roofing and electrical work. But yeah, I would say being an installer and being an electrician, you have the opportunity to make a lot of money.
Awesome. One of the questions that came through, and just so you guys know, I'm making a list of questions. So if we don't get to your question today, hopefully we'll have it answered and that will be in our follow-up email. But how do solar panels make us an infrastructure? Why do solar panels increase infrastructure resiliency? I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Rory, or you're frozen.
Oh, I am.
No, now you're good.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yep.
Am I better now? I probably am. So you think about it, right? So if you take a building without solar, take a large building and you fill it with a bunch of refrigerators and HVAC equipment, air conditioners and computers and everything that's drawing electricity from the grid, the amount of electricity needed to operate that building is going to be very high, right? If you're able to offset that pull from the local grid by installing pieces of green infrastructure like solar or, you know, windmills or, you know, anything that is renewable, you're going to be able to reduce your pull from the grid. And what that does is it then alleviates the demand on the grid and enables it to be more resilient. So, you know, installing solar is a good way. And this is the way that companies are always advertising is that you could save money. And that's true. And that's always a good thing because, you know, we all need money to live our day to day, but also what's not talked about a lot is the complementary aspect of renewable energy on a building and how it reduces the building's pull from the grid.
Awesome. Can a solar panel overheat?
No, I mean they could get hot, right? If they're out in the sun. I installed some solar panels that were sitting on a pallet and they have, you know, black frames and sitting in the sun. Yeah, they're hot, but the actual solar module, no, I don't think it's actually going to overheat.
We have a question from Adam Zad from Queens. He says, what opportunities are available for students who do not anticipate going to college or an associate's degree? I know Kate mentioned a few options for people that were certified, but maybe don't hold a degree. Can you guys speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I could jump in because I'm speaking from experience. So after high school, I didn't go to college right away. I thought it was too cool and just wasn't interested in it. But what happened is I got my way into a solar company and I started doing installations because I had prior construction experience. But fast forward, I meet my wife. She's pretty decorated with her degrees and she pushed me to go back to school. I'm actually going to graduate next week with a bachelor's degree in sustainability management.
Oh,
But
congratulations.
thank you. But what I was able to do is with construction experience, and even if you hold some sort of certificate, an electrical certificate or any vocational certificate, it doesn't hurt to try. If you're not going to go to school, I would advise try to get into a position as quick as you can in some sort of construction trade, because then you could build your resume up. And then if you're interested in moving towards a solar company, you have some sort of background that you can leverage. And then, companies are not require, some companies do require certain levels of certifications and degrees. But like I said, from my experience, I was able to obtain a job with a solar company and learn a lot over the years without a degree.
Awesome. Kate, do you have any advice for students? We see you, Central Park East. Thank you for coming. Do you have any?
Yeah, I think there are a lot
yeah.
of trade school opportunities that, can get you into the sustainability workforce as well. College is certainly not the only option.
For sure.
So yeah.
What is your goal in this project or system? Do you think you're making a difference in the world? It's a good question. You guys are really cutting to the bone with these.
I think we're making a difference.
I definitely second that, Rory. I think especially here in the city where New York is a dense city, and the energy needs are very, very high within the city and all around the city. So I definitely believe that the work that we're doing is catalyzing further sustainability efforts that are much needed within the city for the coming future.
Awesome. I'm just reading through some of the other questions here. What is the best thing about solar? Why focus on solar and not other options?
It's a good question. I'd say we're focusing on solar because there's so many buildings in New York City, so there's a lot of roofs, right? And that's a lot of opportunities. And I believe we've identified that correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the largest contributor in New York City to greenhouse gas emissions are our facilities
81%, yeah.
Yeah. So again, the rooftops being open and vacant and underutilized, we're able to take advantage of those opportunities, and that's why we're doing the solar. There's other technologies out there, and again, solar right now is very cost effective compared to other technologies. Like I'd say, like there's a clean energy hydrogen fuel cells that you can obtain, but again, price wise, those are pretty expensive compared to doing a solar installation.
I'd say space as well. For example, it would be great to have wind turbines in the city, but there isn't space for them. So I'd say space as well, Rory. I completely agree with what Rory said, though. I think the lot of buildings that we have within the city and just the open space that we have, and it makes for a perfect marriage.
Awesome. And I think the last question that we'll close out on is, how does a school get solar panels on their building? What is the process of them kind of initiating getting solar panels?
So I would first suggest that whoever is interested, they reach out to us. We have a New York City Solar Schools at gmail.com email. I believe we also have New York City Solar Schools at schools.nyc.gov email. And that email, if you send an email asking, hey, I am a teacher or a student at so-and-so school, can you tell me if we're going to get solar or what the status is on our building? Then Josh and I will receive that. We could look into it. But again, we try to look for buildings that are big enough that make from a price perspective for the city, that is worth it. Also, we look for buildings that have flat roofs. If there's any schools that have pitched roofs, we're not doing projects on those. Yeah, I mean, if you're interested, I would definitely suggest sending us an email. We'll look into it. We can start a conversation. We work actively with other city agencies, the ones that are responsible for generating contracts to get buildings into active construction contracts. So we're the ones that can facilitate that. It's just we need to hear from you, and we need to understand what your school looks like. Yep.
Fantastic. And Kate, do you have any parting words for our students that have joined us today?
No, I mean, it sounds like you guys are super passionate, so you're already halfway there. Just kind of keep nurturing that passion.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming to our first ever Climate Action Day for Energy. Adam, I see you in your red hoodie, and I appreciate you color coding to the day. And we appreciate you guys all coming and learning more about clean energy careers. And so we will see you for our next Climate Action Day, which is going to be on the 7th on waste. And we're hopefully going to have a career panel on each. So we hope to see you all. Miss Kokadis? Kokiatis. Email New York City School, NYC Solar Schools at schools.nyc.gov, and we'll see where you're at. And I will, in the follow-up email, you guys will get some school data to see if you already have solar panels and how they are functioning on your school. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your Climate Action Day. We're so excited to see what you have to show us on the socials. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day. Bye. Bye, Miss Diaz.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye. We love your energy. Not just a women's news program. Oh, cool. That's great, Wenting. Thank you for adding that to chat. Thanks, Mr. Carlson. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.